Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving aren't the only players in demand this offseason. Another player attracting a lot of interest from multiple franchises is Donovan Mitchell. The shooting guard's been in demand all summer long, and while the Knicks were leading the chase at one point, two other franchises have entered the chase for the 25-year-old. Let's take a closer look at all these rumors, starting with the New York Knicks. This possible trade deal would involve the New York Knicks receiving Donovan Mitchell, of course, while the Utah Jazz gets Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes, Cam Reddish, Evan Fournier, and 5 picks as well. It's a fantastic trade for all parties involved, and we can see why the Jazz might be interested in this one, given they receive so many picks and some fantastic players as well. The Knicks have been the frontrunners for Mitchell's signature all summer long. It's not surprising that the New York side is willing to part with so much to get Mitchell in. They admire him a lot over. They've been in desperate need of a superstar caliber player. The deal makes perfect sense for them because Mitchell grew up in New York and he's a New York sports fan as well, so a return to the city is something that he'd definitely find appealing as well. No one can doubt how serious the interest in Mitchell is from the Knicks. The only question mark on the deal regards the assets that would appeal to the Jazz and they'd want from Mitchell. First-round talents like Obi Toppin and Quentin Grimes would probably be a must, but whether they're willing to take on former first-round pick Cam Reddish along with veteran Evan Fournier is unknown, and the only doubtful thing stopping things from progressing. But regardless of what players the Knicks offer, they've got a surplus of future first-round picks, and the Utah side would love to get their hands on those picks, especially if they're departing with their biggest 2 stars in the same offseason. Not to mention, RJ Barrett could also become a part of negotiations. Next up, the Charlotte Hornets. Don't get us wrong, this would be a seriously super blockbuster if it was to happen. The Hornets do retain an interest in Mitchell, of course, why wouldn't they? But if it does end up happening, this could be the biggest possibility. The Utah Jazz would receive Terry Rozier along with PJ Washington and Kai Jones from the Hornets. But that's not all. They've also got a huge number of picks they'd be willing to part with if they can get in Mitchell, and as per reports and rumors, they're offering 7 future picks spread out from 2023 to 2029. While it may not seem to be a real possibility to fans of Utah and other NBA fans, we seriously think the Hornets stand a chance at landing Mitchell. We know it's absolutely crazy, but the Hornets do have a lot of assets to offer up, and we all know they desperately need high-level talent, especially with whatever is going on with Miles Bridges. Adding Mitchell means that LaMelo can ball with another superstar, no we're not sorry, and while they'd be sacrificing a large chunk of their future, the chances of being successful now are worth all of that. The 25-year-old would be a serious upgrade on Rozier, and while some fans might feel that trading Kai Jones isn't a good idea, they shouldn't forget that the Hornets drafted Mark Williams this year. Plus, Danny Ainge is also in Utah's front office, and he's a big Rozier fan, so there's definitely a possible connection waiting to happen. Mitchell will improve the Hornets massively, and while he's on the same level as Giannis or Jokic, etc., he's still seriously good. The franchise should be on the phone to Ainge right now. And the Washington Wizards. Fans are starting to take the Wizards a little seriously, and the fact that we're talking about them in a possible trade for a player like Donovan Mitchell is huge. For a possible trade to happen, the Wizards would have to send Kyle Kuzma, Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia, and Johnny Davis along with 5 picks and swaps. We know that this package isn't as exciting as the one on offer by the Knicks or even by the Hornets, but the Wizards are probably more desperate to make this move happen than the Hornets at least. They've already re-signed Bradley Beal, that too, to a supermax contract and traded for Kristaps Porzingis at the deadline last season. If they can add Mitchell to their roster, they can seriously break away from the other teams and have a talent pool worthy enough of finishing high in the playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. And the biggest problem for the Wizards is that all their rivals have improved. Most teams in the East either have their entire rosters returning from injuries or have managed to add to their rosters. The Cavs and the Knicks missed the playoffs, but they've also got considerably better, and that means there's no room for error here. Mitchell improves their chances of not only making the playoffs but also going deep in them, but they'll need to move quickly if they want to make a backcourt of Beal and Mitchell. There's an element of risk involved for sure, considering they'd be sacrificing their young core to get a win-now player, but that's a risk they'll have to take. Lastly, what is the Jazz holding out for? This is another important question to answer. The Jazz received a fantastic trade package from the Minnesota Timberwolves for Rudy Gobert, and they definitely value Donovan Mitchell higher than Gobert, so they've got no intentions of bringing down the asking price. Considering they got 5 players and 5 draft picks for Gobert, a better package would be close to mind-blowing, and all 3 teams mentioned know this much. The Hornets are genuine contenders in becoming a possible landing spot for Mitchell, but the Knicks still remain firmly in the driving seat. Mitchell's a fantastic player, but he'll bring some issues too. Everyone knows the politics that went on behind the scenes in Utah between Gobert and Mitchell, so this is a risky move because a fallout could spell the end of a possible resurgence for each of these franchises. At the same time, Mitchell's ability on the court has never been in doubt, so it's a delicately poised situation for all the franchises involved. The Knicks probably make the most sense purely because they can offer Mitchell a home in a place that he's previously called home. But where do you think Donovan Mitchell will be playing by the start of the new season in October? In other news, first up, Knicks and Jazz enter discussions for Mitchell again. With August coming to an end, teams with dormant interests in their targets are reigniting the fire in a bid to get their players in before the start of their preseason. The New York Knicks are one of these teams as they've re-entered discussions with Utah Jazz over a possible trading involving Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz is undergoing a massive rebuild and they wouldn't mind trading Mitchell as they've made it known. As for the Knicks, their interest in Mitchell is one of the worst kept secrets in the NBA, but there are still some snags stopping the deal from progressing. Apparently, Utah is holding out for 7 of the Knicks' 8 future first-round picks, and the question is, do the Knicks want him that badly? Whether they do or not, they'll have to make up their mind quickly because other teams have shown interest in Mitchell, and that could mean they lose out on their biggest target of the last. We don't know how many years. Next, the Raptors' interest in Mitchell. If the Knicks, Hornets, and the Wizards weren't enough, it seems that the Toronto Raptors are also testing Utah's resolve as they look to trade for Donovan Mitchell. The pursuit of KD has been over with the Celtics leading that one, so they've turned their attention towards Mitchell. But the Raptors would need to match the kind of offers the other 3 franchises are preparing, and that might mean giving up on the likes of OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. But Bleacher Report believes that the Raptors are definitely in the running. Last, could Mitchell end up staying? Let's not forget, before the offseason madness began, Donovan Mitchell wasn't the star rumored to leave the Jazz. Instead, it was Rudy Gobert, and he did end up leaving. Things have changed since then, and the Utah franchise has become more open to the possibility of trading Mitchell as well, but there's still a chance that he could end up being in Utah by the start of the new season. And we genuinely think that that's the best case scenario for the Jazz too. They've already made some major changes. A trade for Mitchell might be too much to deal with. Their roster isn't bad by any means, and they could still challenge for the playoff positions if they can keep Mitchell. That's a wrap for this video. Donovan Mitchell's a man in demand, but do you think the Utah Jazz should stick with him for another season? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.